Happy Pride Month, geeks! I am so excited to introduce you to Georges Azzi, who is the first openly gay activist in the Middle East and North Africa region. He has fought for LGBTIQ rights for 17 years and has impacted the lives of thousands, and in a super tough neighborhood no less. He co-founded the very first LGBTIQ organization in Lebanon called Helem, and then co-founded the first sexual health clinic there called Marsa. He also founded the first regional sexual rights organization called the Arab Foundation for Freedoms and Equality. He was able to create safe spaces for LGBTIQ individuals to talk, to learn more about sexual health and HIV prevention, for example. He worked to change the stigmas that exist in the Middle East and fight against homophobia, and he helped defend LGBTIQ individuals in the justice system. Because of his work, he has won numerous awards, including Outright Action International's Philippa de Souza Award, which recognizes the courage and activism of grassroots groups and individuals to survive and thrive in the face of incredible odds and tremendous challenges. But George's journey hasn't been without its struggles, and after he faced numerous death threats, harassment, and attacks during the 2019 revolution in Lebanon, he left and now lives in exile in Spain. And even with growing threats to LGBTIQ rights, he remains optimistic and has a lot of hope for a world where LGBTIQ individuals are treated fairly, equally, and without discrimination or repression. Hi, Georges. I am so excited to have you on Oh My World, especially during Pride Month. Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride Month. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, I'm really excited about our conversation because you are such an inspiration. I want to start with your story. You are the first openly gay activist in the MENA region. Can you tell us what inspired you to pursue activism, and tell us a little bit about your life now and what made you pursue a life in exile?
Okay, well, once again, I'm really glad. I'm excited to be here with you. I haven't spoken about my activism for a long time now. To be honest, I didn't want to be an activist. And to be honest, in '99, there was a online group on the Yahoo list called Gay Lebanon, and we were just a bunch of gay and lesbians chatting together. And for me, there was no hope in the country. It was clear for us that, nothing is going to change. So what I did is actually I went to Paris. I went there to study, and my idea was I just want to start my life outside of this country. I was very young back then. I was 19 years old, and to be honest, 4 years in Paris, I felt happy as a gay man. I was part of, the activist scene there, and I felt fulfilled as a gay man. But I never felt it was home. And there's always something missing of me. I mean, part of me was satisfied, the other part was not. And then, I stayed in touch with the group in Beirut, and while being an activist in Paris as part of the LGBT Center, my dream was, I want this in Beirut. I want to see this happening in Beirut. And when I was chatting with the guys and girls in Beirut, and they said, let's start an organization, I just packed my bag and went back to Beirut. And, maybe that was the craziest move I've done. I don't regret it at all. But once I went to Beirut and we rented this half office for us to start this organization, and we submitted our papers to the Minister of Interior saying, we registered, I just felt that finally I'm a whole. And for me, it was I felt this is the revenge I want to get for all the homophobia and the bullying I got during my life before I ran away to Paris. And I felt so empowered by the whole thing. And, I said, I don't want anybody to go through what I went through. Because the scariest part for me during my adolescence in Beirut, being at school, is that I had nobody to speak to. I had nobody else like me. And I didn't know what to do. And this was the scariest part, is going back home, watching TV, all this homophobia, and my parents are just, agreeing with all these messages of homophobia. And even the closest people to me were not, gay friendly. They hate people like me. So that was the scariest part. And I just wanted to make sure whatever we can do, at least I want this gay person at home to know that there's somebody they can call, or at least chat with. So this is what really made me want to go back and start Helem at the beginning. And it was really an exciting journey, 17 years of activism in Lebanon, and a lot of things have changed. And probably we'll speak about that later.
And you said that, you've had some real highs and some real scary moments in this journey, in this 17 years of activism. You now live in Spain. Why do you live outside of Lebanon? Are you unable to be there?
So yeah, I mean things. I mean, I've never thought I would leave Lebanon. My life was there. My partner was there. We all even got a small house together, and things have changed with the revolution. Because other than me being a gay person, I was also a political activist. Because I'm aware that change doesn't happen for one group of people. Change happens for everybody in Lebanon. And if you want change, we need to work on changing the whole system that's affecting women, LGBT, migrant, and everybody else. So I was also political activism. And when the revolution happened in Lebanon, I was an active member of the revolution. I was very vocal about the revolution. I've never expected to get so much harassment for being part of the revolution as I did there. I mean, the amount of hate messages, the amount of time I was called to the police station, pictures of my mom was put on Twitter, say calling her names, and then eventually what started happening is that my organization started being harassed because of my political work. And even, Hezbollah, who was anti the revolution, had people within the movement, and who started character assassination against me, putting pictures of me when I went to the White House, saying, an American collaborator, Israeli collaborator. So a lot of messages that started hurting the people around me more than hurting me at some point. And I was forced to leave my organization. I left the Arab Foundation for Freedoms of Equality, my choice, because I wanted to protect the organization. The military police would come to the organization and ask questions with the employees. So I left my organization, and then the explosion of Beirut happened, and my house was completely destroyed. And I had military court summon asking me to go to the military court. So at this point, I decided, I'm just going to take a break and come to Spain and learn Spanish. While I was here, I realized, if I go back, I'm going to have military court. I'm going to be in jail. And especially that, one of the activists who was part of the revolution, she was arrested and accused of collaborating with Israel. And during the interrogation, they asked her if I was part of this network of collaboration, even though she wasn't even collaborating with Israel. So I realized if I go back, I cannot help my organization anymore because my organization, will get more trouble because of me. And my family will be harassed because of me. And I felt that, I'm completely useless there. And they managed to completely, made me untouchable by everybody. So I decided to stay here because, there's other people who can handle the organizations now, who can probably take the fight. And after 17 years, I felt that I just need a break from all of this. And I know now if I go back to Lebanon, I will be put in jail and people will start fighting to get me out of jail. And this is just a waste of time for everybody else. So this is why I decided to stay here in exile. It's not. I came here with one luggage. I wasn't planning to stay here. But things have developed in Lebanon in a way that I realized I cannot be useful anymore there.
This is heartbreaking. First of all, I would argue with your term useless. you have accomplished so much, and you continue to accomplish so much, and your activism has had real impact for real humans. I mean, real lives that have been affected for the better because of what you have done and what you do. And I think that there is merit in knowing when maybe you have to sometimes leave in order to continue pursuing your activism. So if you can you give a little bit, you touched a little bit about the state of affairs in Lebanon. And I know this is a very broad question, but can you talk to us a little bit about the state of LGBTQ plus rights in Lebanon and more broadly in the MENA region? How do you see it going? Were there signs of improvement and then things have walked back a little bit? Can you just give us kind of a bigger picture?
I mean, yes, definitely. I mean, if we look back from 2004 when we started, we were the first LGBT organization in Lebanon. Now there are around 20 organizations across the MENA region. Definitely things have grown. In Lebanon, there's 5 or 6 NGOs working on LGBT. The International Day Against Homophobia has been celebrated since 2002 till last year in Lebanon. And we've had some, major achievements. One of them is the banning of anal testing, which was a rape test to prove somebody's homosexuality in jail. That was banned. The Psychologists and Psychiatrists Association removed homosexuality from the list of mental illness in Lebanon in 2013. And the media has changed its language from, talking about sexual perverts to basically supporting the LGBT community. I remember in 2006 when I first went to a human rights organizations meeting, we were kicked out because, a gay issue was not the first thing they wanted to. I mean, it wasn't the right time to speak about LGBT issues. Things have changed positively in Lebanon and in the region as well. I mean, of course, there have always been ups and downs, and this is when you work in human rights, right? Sometimes things go your way, and then things go in the opposite direction, and you just need to stay still and make sure that you have the right network of support around you. I think the biggest achievement would be in Lebanon is us as a small community. We're a minority, of course, and being able to create a network of allies and supporters around us who were willing to defend us whenever we were under attack. This was the biggest achievement of the LGBT community. And we've noticed this, that, when the police in Lebanon went to a cinema and arrested 30 people because, it's public sex, and then how the media reacted to it, they had to free them the next day. So I think that I feel that until I left Lebanon, at least, that the community had the support it needs in Lebanon. Across the MENA region, sorry.
No, please continue.
Across the MENA region, across the MENA region, homosexuality is illegal in a form or another in all the Arab countries. Either there's a clear text saying, homosexuality is illegal, or in other countries like Jordan and Egypt, for example, there is no law against homosexuality, but they use public morality laws. And there's countries that use their own interpretation of what is the Sharia, like Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and the homosexuality is punished by, the death penalty. Things have changed. As I said, that we started with one organization in Lebanon. Now we have 20, from Morocco to Algeria to Tunisia. Even in Egypt, there are some organizations, in Jordan as well. I think the taboo of homosexuality was broken in the MENA region. It's not something that we don't speak about. Of course, that creates some backlash, but you respond to the backlash, and you should be ready to respond to this backlash. And this is where the alliance is really important as well. So I feel that until last year, at least, things were going in the right direction. Now we have to say in the last year, internationally, things are not going well for human rights. Internationally, we've seen, the extreme right wing winning even here in Europe, and the things are going in the opposite direction. And probably, we lost some of our allies. It's a time for us to reflect and think, how can we, reconnect and improve things? And in the MENA region, this was noticed as well. We've seen some organizations closing down. We've seen some huge backlash in Egypt. But overall, I can say that, there's no going back to where we were before. From now on, we can only keep moving forward, even if we have, to take a step back sometimes, reflect, and then keep moving forward. I'm very optimistic, despite, looking at Uganda now, looking at what's happening in the world. It's scary. It can feel scary, but, we've always had this scary moment, even in Lebanon. At some point, I would wake up hoping they will not arrest me today because, they've been calling me. So things haven't been always easy and smooth. So I think this is a difficult time for the LGBT community internationally, and in the MENA region we can sense it as well.
You've touched on so many points I want to unpack a little bit, which is, here in the United States, we are also seeing certain LGBTQ plus rights being walked back, and anti-LGBTQ plus legislation or sentiment growing. And I don't want to sound overly America-centric here, but you mentioned it in Europe as well. And do you find that movement, that trend, is harmful for efforts in the MENA region, as for example, or do those more operate in a vacuum?
No, they don't. I mean, clearly the impact of the right wing is becoming a little bit smarter in terms of campaigns and communications. And the terms we've seen in Lebanon now, the anti-LGBT movement is not saying anymore, go kill the gays, put them in jail, we hate them, they're unnatural. They're speaking about protecting the family and anti-grooming of youth. So this is not a discourse that comes from nothing. It comes clearly from the US and, this movement that's extremely well funded. So the right wing is becoming extremely smarter in terms of how to attack us without seeming that they're attacking us. And this is the case, I think I feel it now in Lebanon. The right wing is becoming more groomed, and how to go after us without looking evil. And so definitely the trend internationally, how it goes, it's affecting us. And we need to look into our communication strategy now. We have managed to win the hearts of people. And people, in Lebanon, when we when we asked them, in 2015, for example, we asked the Lebanese people what they think about homosexuality. All of them said, that homosexuality is unnatural, and we don't want our kids to be gay. And then when we shifted the question to, so what do you think we should do to the LGBT community? Should we put them in jail? 70% said no. Should we kill them? 95% said no. So when you understand how the hearts and minds of people work, we managed to understand that, I think, globally before, and we managed to go to the heart of people and say, what we want in Lebanon is not to go to jail for being gay. We want just the same space as you to speak and to be able to express ourselves. This is all we're asking for. We're not taking anything from you, and we're not going after you and your religion. And I think that we've won this argument across the world, and the pride has become celebrated in most of the Western part, and even in the South. We started people talking about, okay, we don't want to violence against LGBT people. So I think we need to, and the right wing, they captured this, and now they're trying to basically trick the public into their own discourse and to drag them to their own side. So I think it's time for us to see how we can keep, the heart and minds of people, and to make sure that, they get the message clear, that we know how to express what we want to them. And it's going to be challenging with the Grey Communication campaign happening on the other side.
Yes, but I think you have the right goals there, and you are right. From a communication standpoint, you have to stay a step ahead. And certainly I'm seeing these talking points being used here in the United States. And you remind me of a quote from my queen, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court Justice, when she said that real change happens one step at a time. And so that which gets me to my next question, which is that for countries where the legal or societal or the society is hostile to LGBTQ plus individuals, where the legal system or society is hostile to LGBTQ plus individuals, what are the things that you would advise nonprofit groups that are involved in this type of work to fight for? What are the things they can do, the small achievable things that can have meaningful impact?
I mean, if I want to look back at my experience, what I felt while doing this work is that I cannot do this work by only focusing on my sexuality and my sexual orientation. And I need to understand what is the source of homophobia. And if you go back to the source of homophobia, you will see that it's the same source for sexism, it's the same source for racism. So I think connecting with all people and letting people understand that, by fighting for my right, you're fighting for your rights as well. The healthy society is when we all together advance. And people, feel concerned by your cause as well. And, you speak to them and to the human in them. And when we went to the human rights group and saying that, what are we asking for? We don't want to be raped in jail. We don't want to be thrown in jail. And I don't want you to be thrown in jail as well. So what if we work together to, make sure that we all have these basic rights? And I think by, looking at homosexuality, at rights from a holistic point of view, is what was really helpful, at least in our case, especially that, we are a small minority, unknown back then. And we wanted these allies. We wanted to be, with women. We wanted to be with other groups who are marginalized as well, and they feel oppressed. And this had advanced the cause. And I think we need to go back into building these bridges, building as much bridges, fight hatred with love. I mean, it might sound a cliche. This is what worked, going and empathy, going to people and saying that, I feel you. Can you feel me? And this has worked. This has worked in the past, at least for us. And I think it worked also internationally. Maybe the gay community should go back to this and see how we can rebuild some of the bridges that, probably don't exist anymore, and see how we can, become stronger with other people. Because, they're not going after the LGBT community only. They're going, abortion rights be taken away, women feel, vulnerable now. Every single right we fought for, I feel, we should not be taking granted, and we might lose it, and we're losing it if we know with what's happening now in the world. So we just need to come back together, I think, in a very healthy way.
And this is a theme you've touched upon a few times while talking, which is the impact of having public support from whether it's media or just citizens around the world or citizens in the MENA region, and what that does for your movement and your organizations. Can you unpack that a little bit explain the importance of that kind of support, and what are things, tangible, meaningful steps that we can all do all over the world to help this cause?
Yes, I mean, I can. The first time I went to the police station, I was called to the police station in 2005 after founding Helem. And I remember getting into the police station and how I was pushed around by the policeman, sit there, wait here. They were screaming at me in a very aggressive way. And then I went inside for the interrogation and they said, "Who do you work with?" And, I said, saying that we work with the UN AIDS on HIV prevention. We work with these journalists on campaigning for human rights. There's this organization also that's supporting us. The Ministry of Health, by the way, invited us to a conference. And then, the more I named our partners, slowly the tone has changed. And with the police telling that, okay, this is not just one sexual pervert that, we can start beating around and send them home. And this is what, again, I felt empowered because I knew, and before founding, before going public, and this is something that I keep telling to people, if you are in a very dangerous environment, don't just start an organization. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And one of this work, knowing that what happens if the police goes after you, who will defend you? Do you have the support? And this is what we prepared before. And I knew, going to this police station, there are people outside who would know, if I stayed in jail, and who would do something, they will issue a press release, they will communicate with the ministry, with the UN AIDS, and, a couple of organizations. We didn't have much connection internationally, but the more this connection grew in the media, and the more I would go to because I was called a couple of times afterwards in prison, and the more I go, the friendlier I became. Because they knew, I've been in the media, I went on TV, this is an outspoken person, and he has the support of the media and international organizations. And then, funding pressure started coming from embassies as well, saying that, we fund the police. So if you start harassing the LGBT community, we will defund you. So a lot of this partnership and support that we got has helped us continue in our work. And we grow from one organization to 3 organizations, Helem, Marsa, and AFE, and now there are 6. So this is the kind of, when you have the support of the media, international organizations, and local organizations, it will just, feel that I can do this work. And even though probably, I overestimated how much they can do for me, but at least, I'm not going along, knowing that, if I disappear, nobody would know and nobody would care. So this is also something that I think was really helpful in doing the activism. And it's really helpful for people to know also who are operating in oppressive places. Be careful. Don't just go out and throw yourself, in the fire without having some kind of plan.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me a little bit of one human rights activist I once saw who at a conference wanted to make sure to take a selfie with the entire audience so that when he returned to his country, he could prove how many people knew of him, knew him personally, and would be there to call for his release should he be put in jail. And so it kind of reminds me a little bit about that. Georges, this has been so insightful, and I'm so appreciative of your time and so appreciative of your work. And I hope you know the impact that you've had and that you are having, and keep up the good fight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course.